So I've been using the M1 Mac Mini for over few months now. And today, as a Windows user, I have set aside my Windows laptop for the first time ever and used macOS daily. So in my first video on the Apple M1 Mac Mini, I was quite impressed with everything the M1 chips could offer. But after a few complete months of use as my daily driver and using it as my video editor, let's see if things have changed. And yes, I have not used Windows laptop for a few months now for the first time ever. Okay, let's talk. Now first thing goes to the build quality and overall Mac Mini usage. As I have mentioned in my previous videos, Macs are absolutely well made. And this Mac, by no doubt, is a solid built product, at least from the outside. It has a plastic cover at the bottom for connectivity, which works alright. We'll talk about that later. And a plastic bag with lots of ports. Yay! At least compared to other Apple products. If you are a Windows user, you will still not be happy with the port limitations, especially with its limited 2 monitor support. Now that's weird. I still had a dongle anyways to connect my basic SD card for video editing and photo work. Come on, Apple. Design is overall great. Although being a classic and an outdated design, it still looks quite nice. I would have liked to have a smaller machine and maybe a slimmed down Mac Mini. But hey, can't complain for what you get for the price. And the build quality is on point. Next thing about these M1 Mac Mini, well, it's the M1 chips. And my professional opinion haven't changed since my first video. These chips are absolutely amazing. That's the least I can say. Although I was able to bring the M1 Mac Mini to its knees, which we'll talk about that later, but first, let's see how this M1 Mac Mini performs. First goes to daily stuff. These Macs are fast, like really fast. It has boosted my productivity considerably. Web browsing, opening, editing PDFs, and watching 4K videos while mailing is a breeze. Opening up PDFs, photos, and heavy raw files takes a millisecond. Installing and deleting apps are just breathtaking. I can install and delete apps in a few seconds, all without a hitch. Even really top PCs I have tried don't match the normal daily speed this M1 Mac Mini is able to push. And that's thanks to its ginormous single core speed. You can see that with my previous video with the online web browsing benchmarking. Now I can talk all day long, but you have to trust me on this when I say these chips are absolutely amazing for productivity and daily usage. It's quick, it's fast, and it's efficient. Of course, silent as well. What else do you want? Now designing and doing some creative work, this M1 Mac Mini handles things surprisingly well, with a few limitations that we'll talk about later on. The best thing about these M1 chips are their speed while opening up apps. Most apps I open up extremely quickly. Now this is a deal maker personally for me, as opening up apps has always been a slow process and it gets me on my nerves. So having apps, well optimized apps, open up in a few seconds is amazing. Things were just so fast. Editing photos on Capture One and Affinity Photo, creating 200 plus pages of documents on Affinity Publisher, and designing cool illustrations on Affinity Designer. I was able to reach its limits with texture, maps, and thousands of objects on Affinity Designer, but it still worked fairly well even though. Using Final Cut Pro X, I was able to edit these YouTube videos at 4K, 10-bit, 60 frames per second without a problem. Even with effects, transitions, and a whole lot of videos on top of each other, and a few animations as well, things worked well. No other laptop of this price of the M1 Mac Mini comes close to what this M1 Mac Mini can perform. It's just breathtaking. And the M1 chips are absolutely amazing for general creative work. Even if you're editing 4K videos like I do, I did notice that if you pass 15 minutes of editing, things might get a bit slower. Although keep in mind that speed isn't always pure horsepower, but it means productivity. Now talking about reaching and getting the M1 Mac Mini to its knees, I will do few videos, YouTube Shorts videos about these M1 Mac Minis, trying to get the M1 Mac Mini on its knees. If you want to see those videos and if you want to see different softwares with its limitations on the M1 Mac Mini, follow and subscribe and hit the like button. Now, not everything is ice cream and butterflies. The M1 Mac Mini does have its problems, and we'll talk about that right now. Not all apps are this fast. All Apple-designed apps run breathtakingly well on their products. This means that other apps that aren't well optimized, especially apps that aren't compatible at all and need Rosetta, although pretty rare these days as most apps were able to adapt quickly, unlike Windows ARM platforms. Now at the end, this does mean that you might encounter a few limitations with these M1 Mac Minis, especially if you're a developer or other kind of musical engineering. And finally we get to RAM. 8 gigs of RAM is okay. But you do see the limitations when editing large photos and big videos. RAM fills up quickly and desperately starts eating up to your SSD. When a lot of SSD is in use, things get a bit slower, but not that much. Now don't get me wrong, this 8GB M1 Mac Mini was able to push more than my 16GB Windows device. I'm not sure why, but things were faster and I was able to open more apps, even with less RAM on my M1 Mac Mini compared to my Windows machine. But it does get slower when you have a lot of things open at once. Doing motion graphics can still sometimes bring the M1 chips on its knees, and would definitely recommend you getting the M1 Pro or the M1 Max for heavy-duty motion graphics. One thing I cannot underestimate about this M1 Mac Mini is its coolability. Is that even a word? As in overheating. Like even rendering 4K videos, editing, and doing stuff that would overheat the hell out of my Intel CPUs or Windows machines, things were still dead quiet on these Macs. Sometimes I work late at night or wake up very early, like on 5 a.m. So having a silent computer or a silent machine is a deal breaker from now on, as I noticed how quiet, clean, and comfortable it is, not annoying other people in my apartment with its noises I get with other Windows machines. It is definitely amazing working in silent atmospheres. Now we get to Bluetooth. Other issues I was able to encounter with these M1 Mac Minis is its Bluetooth. Not so much, but Bluetooth seems a bit sluggish. Disconnects when you get too far while my effed up Android phone doesn't. Mouse feels laggy or jittery sometimes. And a few times my keyboard disconnects randomly, only on these M1 Mac Minis. Overall, the Bluetooth is below average. I was using USB remote to connect my mouse wirelessly. I just hope my keyboard doesn't disconnect randomly again. One more thing, one tiny little thing is that sometimes might be a software issue, but sometimes when I open up apps, it takes over a minute or two to open up well-optimized M1 apps. I did realize that the CPU goes up to 100% and things don't make sense. So I did realize that this is a bug either from macOS or from the software engineers from the software side. If you reinstall all the apps or the apps encountering this issue, the problems get fixed. But I hope macOS or Apple deals with that soon. Finally, we get to gaming. Don't get the M1 Mac Mini for gaming. I still will be using my Windows machine for gaming. And if you are going to game a lot on this M1 Mac Mini, it's probably better to have a separate Windows machine that includes all the games that we all love and hate. As a first-time Mac user, these M1 chips were refreshing and amazing. macOS can genuinely sometimes be more productive than Windows. I will explain that in future videos, so subscribe, because we'll talk about macOS very soon, especially from a Windows user. And it can be more productive, with some downsides. We'll talk about that later. But if you are a professional photo or video editor, medium complex projects, this Mac is for you. If you are a Windows user and want to start with Mac, M1 Mac Mini is a great way to experience that, cheaply. If you are a businessman or work from home, no other Windows machine can match these M1 Mac Minis, literally. And finally, if you are a professional designer like I am, I would highly suggest you try and get these M1 Mac Minis. You will not be disappointed. Oh, by the way, if you work in 3D and animations or motion graphics, I would suggest you wait for the M1 Pro Mac Minis. They might be a lot more ideal, especially with the graphic limitations of the M1. At this point, for work and productivity, apart from general software limitations or gaming and motion graphic, there is no point in getting a PC or Windows machine. Especially keeping in mind that these Macs M1 Mac Minis are absolutely quiet, fast and efficient. And if you see people just going crazy on YouTube about these M1 Macs, about being so amazing, it's because they are. And a lot of people just can't get their head around on how Apple was able to get this done smoothly. Now that's it for the M1 Mac Minis. And yes, this M1 Mac Mini is still worth it in 2022. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe, because I will do more videos about Mac and other general productivity videos. So subscribe. And for now, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. It's Harag, and I'll see you next time.